And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan Metzler here, and I'm back from Gen Con with a copy of Milestones. Now, this wasn't available at Gen Con. It was on display at the Stronghold Games booth, but is not yet available for purchase, but will be very soon. As I said, this is published by Stronghold Games and Eggertspiel. It's a game for 2 to 4 players and a Euro game in which players will be trying to colonize a new area, building roads and milestones, marketplaces and houses in order to try and score points, utilizing their workers, which will come and go, age and die, in order to get the resources to do so in the hopes of scoring the most points by the end of the game. So real quick, we'll take a look at what you get inside that box and how the game plays, and then we'll come back here and get my final thoughts on it. Here you can see the components for Milestones, and this is a relatively light to medium Euro-style game. In this game, players are going to be trying to essentially construct different roads and trading posts and houses in order to earn points, and they're going to do so by moving their worker along their own little player board. Now, in order to do anything, you're going to need workers, and these are represented by these tiles that you can see here. Now, this tile right here has several different things on it. You can see we have a brown worker, which will get you a brown cube. We have a yellow worker, which will get you a yellow cube. And then on the bottom, you can see we have some numbers, 3 and 4. These numbers are really only used for a specific portion of the game where if you have all of your workers in ascending order from 1 to 8, which is the maximum, you're going to get an extra gold for stopping at a specific point. So there is a benefit to keeping your workers in order. Now, brown, gray, white, and yellow goods are going to represent different things, which would be stone, wood, sand, and grain, respectively. And all of these workers will provide different things, and then there's one type of worker here that provides coins, and coins have their own special use. They're not really a good. But at the beginning of the game, starting with the last player and proceeding backwards towards the first player, each player is going to get to choose 2 of these workers to place on their board. So you're probably going to want to get a diversity of goods, although you may want to specialize. So let's say that the player that we're looking at here decides to choose these 2 workers, and the rest of these get chosen. There's 9 available at the start of a 4-player game. They all go away, and everybody's chosen theirs. And when you get your 2 workers, you can place them out on your board in these spots here in any way you want. They don't have to be organized so that you can have a certain amount fit. You can usually fit 4, but you could place them like this and this if you wanted to. However, we're going to place them at the very beginning and the very end of our board. And this is because you have to always be able to place your workers, and sometimes your workers are going to die, which can be detrimental or sometimes good for you. But anyhow, after you've placed like this, you're going to start taking turns, and when you take a turn, you get to take 2 actions. And those actions are in the form of movements of your worker. So we see our worker here, he starts on the castle, but when he moves, he gets to move to 2 different spots. And so he can move, and let's say he wants to get a gray cube. He could move here, and he would get 1 gray cube. Now, let's say, for example, he had a different worker on the board. He had this one here. Instead of going to this gray cube, he could skip past and go to the 3rd gray cube. And he's going to get a gray cube for every gray cube he passed, including the one he landed on. So he would get 3 gray cubes in this instance instead of the 1. But we're at the beginning of the game. He doesn't have this worker. He's going to stop here and get his 1 gray cube, keeping it in his area. After that, he can make another movement. So let's say he moves here and he gets a white. And now that player is done, and it would move on to the next player's turn, who's going to do something similar. So this top row is always going to be collection of goods. You can collect 1 or you can collect multiple. You can stop as often as you like or pass as many areas as you want. Now the bottom area of your board is going to be where you perform all of your real actions that are going to take place out here on the board. When you start moving down to these areas, you'll see there are 3 spaces here, and then we're back to the castle. You can stop on these areas, and you're going to get specific actions that you may do. And there are 3 for the first 2. There's 1 on the 3rd one, and then you get to the castle. But this first area here lets you do 3 different actions, and you can do all of them, none of them, and you can repeat them if you want. This first spot, when you land on it, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to check and see if all of your workers are in ascending order. So we have 1, 2, 8, 8. We are in ascending order. What we can do now is take a free coin from the bank and add it to our area. And that's a benefit for keeping your workers in order. Always good to do. Then we have 3 possible actions we can take. First, we can trade in any 2 cubes if we had extra cubes we didn't want for another money. So we could take a money and add it to our thing. And we can do this as many times as we want. In addition, we can pay 2 money to buy any 1 cube. So we could return this 2 money to the supply. And let's say we really wanted to buy a brown for some reason. We'd buy a brown and add it to our area. Finally, and maybe we don't want to do that this turn, we could spend that 2 money instead to buy a worker from the top of this area here. So we'll look here and we have all these different workers, and we'll look at our board and see what we're missing and what pieces we could buy in order to keep in order from our 1 to 8. So we see a 2-5 here, and there's also a 4-7. Well, we have all those goods, but we don't have any white, or I guess we do have some white, but let's say we want to specialize in white. There's a 3-6 here. Well, 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, 8, that works out. So we can do this, and now we have more workers that when we pass them by, we can get a whole bunch of white in one fell swoop. The next spot, if we were to stop at it, is what's going to let us to build things out on the board. So now we can build out onto the board. And there are 3 different things that you can build out on the board. There are roads, there are marketplaces, and there are houses, and each one is built differently and requires different goods. You can build as many as you want on your turn, so long as you have the cubes to do so. So in order to build a road, or a milestone as it's called, the piece in the center, you would spend a white and a gray back to the supply. When you do this, you're going to take 2 of these road pieces and 1 of the milestones, and you're going to start building out on the board, and you have to start from this area, but eventually you'll be able to build out. When you do this, you're going to place the first road from this tent area between 2 of the numbers. Then you're going to place the milestone on the number, and you're going to place the road headed in any direction from there. So let's say we wanted to go this way. When you place this milestone, you're going to earn the number of points that you cover up. So the yellow player, in this case, would get 2 points. The next thing you can build would require a white and a brown, and this is called a marketplace. Marketplaces have to be built at one of the corners that aren't currently covered next to a road. So for example, in this case, the only place we can build one is over this 2 right here. For building this, you would get 2 points. So let's say the green player did it, they would get 2 points because they covered up a 2. The third type of area you can build is going to be a house. And building houses, you're going to not place them on any of these spots, but instead you're going to place them in one of these triangles here that is adjacent to a road. So let's say instead of building that way, I built this way. And now the player who wants to build a house pays a gray and a brown back to the supply, and they place their house in one of the triangles adjacent to the road. When they do so, they're going to score all of the uncovered spots that are adjacent to that triangle. So we have a 1 and a 2 here. And if this spot were uncovered, which it couldn't be, but if it were, they would get those points as well. So here they're going to score 3 points for building this house, and they would score appropriately. You can do as many of these as you want on your turn, as long as you have the goods, but essentially that's going to be the major way of scoring points. Now you'll see on the board here we have some bonus tiles. These tiles here are revealed at the beginning of the game, and they are going to be different types of worker bonuses that you can get. And in order to pick these up, you have to build in an area that is adjacent to one of these. So for example, if someone were to build right here, let's say they built a marketplace right here, they could pick up this worker, and this is a gold worker. And in order to do this, they would have to have one of these workers out here that matches the color of the tile, and they would put this on their tile. So now this worker generates 2 gold anytime you use it or pass it by. You could also get one of these by building a house in one of the areas that is next to that good. So for example, right here, we can build this house here or here, and we would pick up that worker and add it to one of the appropriate workers on our board. The third type of action you can do at the windmill here is going to be to use your grain, or yet in order to get a wheat, in order to place it on a market that has been built. So you would turn in 2 grain. They look like this. You would take a wheat, which looks like this little token here, and you would place it on any market that currently does not have a wheat on it, which would be this one right here. When you do so, you're going to automatically get 1 money from the supply. But in addition to that, you're going to get points, and you're going to get points for any 2 of the adjacent areas that hasn't been covered. So for example, we have a 3, a 2, a 2, and a 1. Well, I probably want to choose a 3 and a 2. I get 5 points, and I add that to my score track. The last possible spot is a spot where you always have to stop. So you can advance 2 actions at a time, moving here, moving there, and then on your next turn, moving here and here. Then on your next turn, maybe you want to move all the way back around to the beginning of the board to get more stuff from your workers. But you have to stop at the castle. And 2 things happen every time you go to the castle. The first is that one of your workers is going to die or leave, whichever way you want to look at it. And you're going to take one of these little vacant tile things, and you have to cover up one of your workers on your board. Now, maybe you don't need all this white, so you decide to cover up your 6th worker. He's no longer there, and this acts just like he never was there. And the next time you place a worker, you could, in theory, place a worker over the top of these two, and you can simply move this out of the way to show that you built that there. But you could also place it like this, and you would simply put a placeholder under there and build that there to show that those workers are now in that spot and you'd like to keep your white. But right now, you're going to kill a worker. In addition, if you have more than 3 goods left over, you have to discard down to 3. If this was your first action of the turn, you could then move on, and maybe you move here to take the 2 gold. But if it was your second action of the turn, you're simply done, and it moves on to the next player's turn. The game is going to end when the players reach a set number of points, and that's going to depend on how many players are in the game. In a 4-player game, the game ends on the round in which 1 player reaches 51 points. In a 3-player game, in the round in which 1 player reaches 59 points. And in a 2-player game, in the round in which 1 player reaches 67 points. At this point, that player will be their last turn, and everybody else gets 1 more turn in order to try and earn points. At the end of those extra turns, the player with the most money... At the end of those extra turns, the player with the most points is going to be the winner. And there you have Milestones from Stronghold Games and Egert Spiel. This is as I said, kind of a medium-light game, and one that I really enjoyed in my play that I had at Gen Con and continuing on. The game is really focused around getting the right organization of builders in your area, and that can be difficult with your builders constantly dying, but I do like that mechanic of workers dying that was introduced by Village, or at least featured in Village, and continues to be used in this game, but in a different fashion. In this one, you have a whole line of workers that you're trying to keep in order, and you can build over those empty spots, replacing them with new workers. So it's not always a bad idea to kill off a worker. Maybe your needs have evolved, and you really need more grain now instead of the sand that you were collecting before, so you can replace some of your sand workers when that option comes around. Building out on the board has definitely got some strategic aspects to it, collecting the right pieces in order to build a road and then a house to pick up a bonus and a whole bunch of points can really work out in your favor if you plan it right. So with all of that said, the game is really a little lighter than I usually play, but definitely one that I find interesting. I'm really excited about the design and the concepts that it brings up with the dying of workers, and I think that it's one that a lot of medium, even maybe heavy, and definitely medium lighter Eurogamers will really enjoy.
Thanks for watching our review today. For more information about board games, as well as the #1 board game audio podcast, check out Dicetower.com for reviews, interviews, and more. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.